Hi, race fans. Welcome to Beyond the Track with Daniel Blair. This is episode number 26. If you like this episode and you want to see some more, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel for Supercross Live. We've had some great episodes, and looking forward to this one. It's Garth Milan joining me today. And Garth, I got a lot of questions lined up for you, but I just want to start by welcoming you to the show. And first off, how's the trip so far? How you feeling?
Thanks for having me, Daniel. I appreciate it, man. The trip's been great so far. Indy was another cold one this time. We got some snow just like we did a few years ago, which was pretty interesting. But it's kind of cool, you know. It makes for something different, and I don't really think it affected much since we're in that dome, so that was nice. And the racing last night, as you guys know, was phenomenal. It was some of the best racing I've ever seen in both classes. So, it was great. It's been a great trip so far. Really good track last night. Really interesting track. It's been good so far. Indy's good, man. I'm excited to be here.
It was a fun night, right? I'm still feeling the effects of it. Like, these guys just they entertain, man. And they're not doing it on purpose. They're just trying to do their job, but gosh, they make it fun.
It's so good, man. Yeah, anytime I get a text from my wife after the race saying that was the most insane battle ever, that's a big statement because she's not the biggest fan, but the thing is like, if it's a really good battle, she gets drawn in and then she's all about it. So anytime I get a text from her afterwards, I'm like, okay, that was a really good race, because she texts me right away with all the play-by-play of what happened and everything. And I was like, yeah, it was a good one.
That's the same with me. Sometimes my wife will text me, how'd it go? And then sometimes she texts and she's like, call me. I'll call her. And she's got questions. She's like, why did this happen? And why did that? And I'm like, you enjoyed it, didn't you? She's like, yeah, I did, but I got questions. So last night, there's a lot of questions we can talk about, but I want to talk about you today. We're going to go beyond the track. And what I want to do is start with just where you are at right now. Like, what are your responsibilities? What are you doing? What's at the top of the priority list for you and your day-to-day? And then from there, we'll steer around.
Well, I guess just top of the list is photography in general. I mean, I'm just pretty much every day I'm either shooting or planning a shoot or dealing with photos from a shoot. So definitely living the photographer life that I've always wanted to. So that's been awesome. I'm really happy about that, but I'm very fortunate. But it's been dizzying as well. I'm always in a different city or a different place, and it's really been fun. I guess right now I'm kind of professionally splitting my time in between racing and race coverage and that sort of thing. And then on the off weeks, I'm doing more commercial shoots, or I'm doing shoots for, clients like Red Bull I do a lot of work for, just different people like that. And sometimes, it's Dick's Sporting Goods. I'm doing a shoot for them next week. So a bunch of different clients, and they're all over the place, whether they're, they're typically involved with some sport. But yeah, typically, it's a bicycle, it's a motorcycle, it's a car, or a plane sometimes, things like that. So I would say I'm kind of split in the middle with that. So, between traveling go to every single Supercross and every single motocross. So that's, almost 30 weekends a year right there. So that, keeps me pretty busy. But like I said, that there is a lot of time during the midweek and also on the off weekends when I'm, trying to go in other directions and other avenues in terms of just, do different kind of content and different kind of shoots and stuff. I really liked variety. I came from a background of being a photojournalist. So to me, when I was in college, I worked on a college newspaper, and it was a daily paper every single day. It was a different assignment. Sometimes I'd be shooting hard news, and sometimes I'd be shooting a portrait of somebody, or, something. So every day was different. And I kind of thrived on that. So now that I'm doing this professionally, I enjoy that as well. So as much as I loved shooting the Supercross, and every race is so good, it keeps it fresh, I also enjoy, doing some other shoots as well. And it just kind of keeps me well-rounded, I think.
I mean, obviously you're passionate about it. And you think that's one of the reasons why after all these years, you're still passionate, because you have diversity. Like, if you were just doing this every day, I would imagine at some point you're like, man, I am so sick of shooting dirt bikes. But is it getting that other stuff, some of that commercial stuff, is that what keeps that balance to where when you show up in Indy, you're like, heck yeah, let's go, because it's not just this?
100%. You nailed it. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like, I've been shooting now. This is my 3rd year of shooting Supercross, and I love it just as much as I ever have. But I never really hit that burnout phase because I'm always doing other things as well. So sometimes, I'll get sick the other stuff I'm doing, and I come back to Supercross and I love it. Or if I've done a bunch, so maybe after 3 indies, I'll be ready for a week-long break, and then I'm going to shoot some other things next, during that week. So then I'll be ready to come back to Orlando. So it definitely keeps me on my toes, and it keeps it fresh and keeps it exciting for sure.
Everybody's background's different. How they get into the sport, how they get into their profession. There's so many routes that you can go. Tell me about yours, though. I mean, I know, like you said, you went to college. There was a different birth to all this than some take. Some it falls in place different ways. But tell me about your transition, into your adult life, making the decision to go to college and get into this profession that has led you to what you do now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like a lot of people in our industry, I started off wanting to be a professional motocrosser, and I chased the dream as far as I could until I broke enough bones and realized that it probably wasn't happening for me. I wasn't quite fast enough and everything else. So at that point, I was in college, but more general education things. And I was going towards a degree in the medical profession. Now, I wasn't going to be a doctor or anything, but I was going to be like an occupational physical therapist. Because again, I'd been hurt so many times. I was pretty familiar with that kind of thing. And I was kind of interested in it. And so that was kind of the avenue I was going. And then I ended up just switching gears in college. Midway through, I took a photography class and just got bit by the bug and just completely dropped everything. And it was just like, it was like my passion. I just found it. And it was like, still to this day, feel really lucky to have like just all of a sudden just like that was it. There was like no second guessing. So parents thought I was a little crazy, but I switched all my classes and completely switched my major. Ended up doing that. And by the time I wasn't even finished with college, and I'd already had a full-time job. So I felt that it was a pretty good, I had a pretty good path going. I started, this was in the late 90s. It was in 98. Right about the time I was finishing college, I was pretty good friends with, well, actually it was through my mom. My mom, she worked at the local GFI racetrack out at Paris Raceway. And so, yeah, you've been there, I'm sure. so yeah.
I've been there within the last year a couple times.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so I grew up racing there all the time, almost every weekend. So through that relationship, my whole family worked at that track with GOAT and everything for like almost, I think, 20 years. My mom worked there. And so at that point, she knew Ken Fott, who at that time was the editor at Dirt Rider. So, and I was just about kind of through college. Was fairly confident with my abilities, but was still pretty green. And she just made the connection one day. She said, "Hey, Ken, I'd love you to meet my son. He maybe could do a couple things for you." So it kind of went from there. He gave me one little assignment. I did well with that one, and he gave me another one. And then next thing I knew, it was 1998 Anaheim 1, and they got me a pit pass. So I got into the pits, but I couldn't go to the track. At that time, the security, though, wasn't quite the same as it was, and it wasn't quite as... So I ended up...
So you found your way around, huh?
Story. I ended up sneaking onto the floor that night, somehow, some way, found my way down to the floor, shot, and I just got lucky enough to get the photo of Ezra Lusk. And it was the shot that he won the race, I guess, and he did win the race. And that was the photo they wanted for the cover. So it just happened to be, some skill and probably more luck that it all worked out. And they ended up using my photo. And so that was enough to, I think, open their eyes and go, hey, we should, maybe start getting him a credential more. And so it all kind of just snowballed from there. So basically that was like my break. And then it just, from there I started doing more and shooting more. And so I worked with Ken at Dirt Rider in 98 and 99. And then in 2000, Don Maeda, who worked at MX Racer, he was at the same, we were working in same floor of the same building in LA, even though MX Racer and Dirt Rider are separate titles, they were owned by the same company. So he at some point asked me if I was interested in this new startup magazine called Transworld. So we talked about it a bunch and everything, and I decided it was a great opportunity for me because it was a good time for me to, rather than work for a really respectable and really like well thought of publication, which was Dirt Rider. It's a hard decision because it was a great place. At the same time, I thought it would be a place for me to really make my own stamp and show my own creativity and kind of like start it from scratch and make it with Don to what we did. So I went for it. I felt horrible to tell Ken, he was really bummed out at me for a long time, but we're really good friends again, which, I think he understands that now, why I made the decision I did. again, it was a really hard one, but I'm really happy. And that turned into Transworld from day one until 2008. So I worked there for the first almost 100, I think it was about 100 issues I did at Transworld. And then in 2008, I ended up leaving to go start my own career as a freelancer. So still involved almost the same people to this day, 20 years later, but now I'm doing it in a freelance capacity.
Something you said there when you're in school, you're making that changeover now, and I'm going way back to the beginning here, but what was it about photography that really made you want to change? I mean, what is it about it? Is it capturing the shot? Is it the editing side? Is it seeing your, photos end up on a cover? Like, what is the part of that brings that passion to you? What would make a change? I mean, that's a big change. Like, why? What is it about it that made you do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've really actually thought about that a lot in the past, and really, I can't really say it was like like as cheesy as it sounds, I really did just feel like a calling almost. Like I just had no choice almost, where it was just like, it was just calling my name or something. I know it was weird. It's like it just, and it wasn't like, I wouldn't say that I was like completely like a natural or anything, but it was just the idea of even learning about it was so compelling to me that it just like, I couldn't read enough about it. And this is before the internet was a big thing. So I wasn't really necessarily going on video, like watching videos. It was more back then. It was more, reading magazines and books and things. And so I just was just completely obsessed with it. And it just turned into like, I mean, on my free time, I was reading technical things about cameras and things. And so it just turned into this huge thing. And then also I think that a lot of it was, as a kid growing up, I was really always into the two sports. I was into tons of sports, but skateboarding and motocross were my two things I've always loved. And so both those had, especially back in the 80s and 90s, had a huge, like magazines were everything back then. So I grew up reading those magazines and living, like seeing those images and turning the page all the time and just obsessing over all that stuff. And I think that really formed the path to start me off. And then once I kind of had those ideas, and I think like I never maybe technically thought of like, how did that guy get that picture? But enough of that was there in my head to where when I combined that with learning about actual like technical side of cameras and knowing how to use them and everything else, it all kind of just started. It was just meant to be, and it just started happening.
And then just grew into everything that we're about to get into. I do want to go to the Ezra Lusk photo. And this is just a question that I have. When the decisions are made to choose that photo and put it on the cover, how are those decisions made by the magazines? And I know everyone's probably got their own vibe on how they decide, but why did they choose that photo? Was it the angle? Because I'm sure you're not the only one who caught him going over the finish line jump, but why that one? Why that angle, that look? Like, how does that decision get made, especially for a cover, not just in the magazine, but a cover shot? Like, how do they decide that?
You're right. There are a lot of factors that go into it, and there's a ton of things. I mean, everything from just being the right shot and maybe the right framing to where they wanted to include other pieces of, other things on the cover, and so it left room for that. And there's so many things. So a lot of it comes down to like the art department and the art director, as well as the editor himself saying that, or him or herself saying that this is the exact shot that sums up what we want to put on the, or say about the cover or the story or whatever. So I think in that moment, it was really about, Ezra was like really like the hot, like he was really shining, and it was kind of like a, well, here's Ezra. So I think, how, I guess to answer your question, how it worked out with that is, they basically, everyone who shot on staff, it was Scott Hoffman, Ken Fott, myself, and I can't remember I think maybe Frank Hoppen was also contributing. So like we basically would pool all of our images together. And again, this is before digital cameras, so it was all slide film. So there's a big, in Dirt Rider Officer, to be a big massive one of those big white tables, those light tables. And so we would just basically, they'd be like, all right, we're putting, Ezra's the guy we're putting on the cover, who's got, let's see your best Ezra shots. So everybody would be there, and here's my, it's almost like poker chips, you put them down, and here's my favorite slide. And so, you get the big loop, and everyone looks through them, and everyone kind of, I guess, I think at that point we all kind of cohesively talked about what worked the best and everything. And it's always kind of awkward because you never want to like root for your shot, but at the same time you're excited at the potential. But yeah, I think it just kind of worked out that I just happened to have the angle that worked for everything, and I got lucky.
I always wondered that, because you see these cover shots, and I guess you answered the question. Like, if we're going Ezra Lusk and he's the guy, we want to get him on the cover, you start looking at all the ones that make sense and work. I mean, what did that feel like to you at that moment when you're just getting in there, barely getting started, sneaking onto the track to get the shot, and then boom, yours is going on the cover? Was that
literally like a dream come true. I didn't even think, I mean, when it was even in consideration, I was like, there's no way, it's going to happen. But I was just happy even to be in consideration. So at that point I was like, oh, this is huge, like just the opportunity to even have my shot in the mix was huge for me. So at that point, especially in my career, I mean, that was, I had a few published shots, but to think I was going to get possibly of a cover, I mean, that was just like the biggest thing ever. And again, at that point, I had only been working with Ken and the gang there for probably 6 months or something. So it wasn't that long, so it was like, I was still kind of the new guy, and I was, like I said, I was still in college, finishing up school and stuff. So it was a huge opportunity, and it was a really just a catalyst, I guess, for a ton of things.
So you've been a part of some cool moments and some cool things. One that I would like to ask about is just the time spent with Bubba. Everybody, even if the people that don't like James as like their favorite rider, everybody's intrigued by him. He's kind of a mystery guy, you know what I mean? In his earlier years, less, but you've had a chance to work with him a little bit. What were those experiences like, and how much fun was it to just be, with him, knowing that you're doing some things that are going to be used, and it's just, I have to imagine that was a fun time.
Yeah, that time spent with James has been some of the best in my career. I mean, it's crazy because to think that I've, looking back now, especially in kind of what of a legend he's become and everything else. Now that he's not even racing anymore, I think he's even more of a legendary status, and like, yeah, looking back at some of those times, when you're there, it's happening so fast and everything. But at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, man, that was pretty special. And I mean, I don't know how James ended up kind of deciding that he kind of took me under his wing in terms of like being the guy that he would typically want to shoot with. And I don't know how I was lucky enough to be that person. I think it just kind of worked out. He and I hit it off. I'm a fairly quiet, not shy person, but I'm fairly quiet. And I think maybe that helped me with him because he's kind of the same way. And I think that I didn't go in there, starstruck or asking for his autograph or anything. I think it was more of a genuine, just, I was obviously a fan, we all are, but I think it was more of like I was there to work, and he, I think he really also, I think that I typically tend to shoot pretty quickly. And I think that was another thing. I think he had kind of, when I first started working with him, he had kind of elaborated on that more. And like, he would say that, certain times there'd be shooters in the past that he'd work with that, would just take a long time or it'd be like frustrating for him. And he kind of just, he's definitely, of all the people I've worked with, he's get in, get out. He'll just do his laps real quick and you get what you get, And so luckily he's so good on a dirt bike that you don't need anything special. So that's what's so good about shooting with him, is you just got to be on it. And it's like, there'll be times when he's at that level. And I've shot with other like, NBA players and stuff where it's just like, they don't have a lot of time. You have to be on your game and just get it and done, And I mean, it's like, and he's one of those people, he's like, hey, I'm going to scrub this jump once or twice, get the shot, get it. Cool. You got it. Okay, good. And it's like, he doesn't want to hear one more or like, hey, let's try some more, So, I think we had a pretty quick mutual respect for one another, and it just kind of, worked out. And I think it also helped with my relationship with Red Bull, because he was, a Red Bull athlete. And I think that helped. And, Roger Larson, he helped make that happen too. And Jeremy Malott. So I think just all of them we all kind of, tight crew. James is really into tight crews, and he's, he doesn't like a lot of new people coming in and coming to the ranch and everything. So I think it was one of those things that once he knew he could trust me and we're good, it was good. So yeah, so a lot of cool opportunities.
What's it like now when you see Mookie? Because I mean, he was kid. He wasn't James as a kid. He was different.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can remember him just being the kid hanging out at the track basically, and like, riding around some, pulling up on his bike and doing some laps and stuff. And I can remember, I mean, back in the day when James was at his height and Mookie was just coming up, I can remember being crazy impressed. I mean, he was the little chunky guy and just freaking ripping that bike. So, I knew I always believed in him, and I've always really been a big fan of him as well. And I've known his potential, and I think it's really cool to finally see him, shining. And not that he hasn't shined before. I mean, obviously he's a champion, but he's like, the fact that he's back on his game in the 450 class, which is in the most stacked year ever. I feel like he's riding really well and is showing a lot of potential. And it's cool to see him on a big team like that really believes in him and gives him that opportunity. So yeah, I'm a huge Mookie fan.
Working with Red Bull, obviously they're all over the place. They're doing a lot of different things. Did they just tell you or give you a schedule, or do you tell them? Like, how does that work with them where you start going and doing all the different things that they have? Because there's just so many opportunities. How does that relationship work as far as you going where you're going?
Yeah, that's it. That's another thing that's kind of changed throughout the years. It used to be when I started with Red Bull, that was probably about 15 years ago, maybe. I don't know if it was 15 years ago. Yeah, about 15 years ago. And things were structured a lot different then. And I mean, they're still an awesome company, don't get me wrong, but things were, the early days where we all joke around, all the Red Bull employees who've been there forever are like, those are days, because that was, I mean, back in when I first started doing things there, it was just like sky's the limit. I mean, just whatever you like, there was no budget basically. It's just like, oh, you want that? You need a shoot out of? Okay, no problem. I'm gonna write the check. So I mean, that was literally, it was crazy. So, but now again, it's changed a lot, but it's still an awesome company. Anyway, back to your point, is it's more structured now in terms of like throughout the country, there's units, like regional business units. Yeah. And so a lot of times, like those, like depending on where the project is, those people will be the people who hire me individually. And then there's also a whole group of, like the motorsports department. So like that department, when they have things like they had that the Red Bull event recently with Tyler Berriman. So like that was one of the example of something where, that was it was a regional event, but it was also a bigger like motorsports event in general. So I was both groups reached out to me for that. But yeah, it's typically like I'll find out about things, maybe a month. Sometimes it's a couple weeks ahead, sometimes it's a month or two, and it'll be like a big project or a shoot or something. And so people will reach out and make sure I'm available. But yeah, it's pretty much just individually. I just per project get, asked to do it per project.
When you have a schedule like Supercross and Motocross where it's 29 weeks, is there ever been a scenario where someone's called or something's popped up where it's conflicting and you're like, you know what I mean? Like where you have to make that decision of, God, I really want to do that, but I have my obligations and responsibilities and my Does that ever happen where you're just like
literally just about every week it happens?
Okay, so all the time.
All the time, yeah. In fact, just coming up, there's they're doing the Day in the Dirt South, and Red Bull asked me to come shoot that. But it's the first weekend of Arlington, so I'll be at Arlington. So it's all good, Hey, either way, I'm gonna excuse me, I'll be getting my motorcycle fixing. So, but yeah, it's definitely a bummer. It happens for sure. There's a project coming up with Levi LaValle that I might be shooting with. And if that happens, that might conflict. So I might have to ask Ryan Swanberg, who's my partner at Octopi, to cover for me that weekend or something. But we typically try not to do that. We both pretty much go to every race. There's a event or two here and there that he and I will both miss. Like typically he goes to X Games, Winter X Games, so I typically will cover that weekend for him. But we for the most part, we try to both go to every round just because there's so much work to do at the race and at the Supercross. So we try to always both be there.
How does that relationship work, and where are you guys again as a business? Like when did that start, and how is it going with two of you again trying to juggle these schedules, and both of you? I mean, there's a need for both of you. So how does that working? Is that working out okay?
Oh man, it's great. Yeah. It's really fun. It's fun Brian's, one of my best friends in the whole world, and so it's really fun to travel with your best friends, and it's also just really cool because it alleviates a lot of pressure and stress for both of us, because it's like, there's times when everybody makes a mistake. Sometimes you mess up and you miss a rider might come over another lane and you miss the finish line shot, you miss, the winning shot or something. And so that's a lot of pressure week in, week out to never miss that. So, if you do happen to miss that one week, to know that you have somebody else shooting, and same with like on the podiums, if you might be getting blocked or for some reason you can't get access to the rider, that Ryan's there doing it. And so it's really just helps with everything. And again, it's just fun to have, for years I did it by myself and traveled to all these by myself, and you stay in the hotel room by yourself and all that stuff, and it's just more fun to have someone to go eat with and go drink a beer with after the race and talk about it and laugh about it and whatever. So it's fun. It really is. I feel really lucky to have started that. And yeah, it's been 4 years now. We started in 2017. So yeah, it's really evolved, and now it's evolved even more. We're actually doing some small video clips for some of our clients as well now, which has been really fun to get involved with as well. And that's been a learning curve for us. But last night we were able to get some really, really cool stuff. And that's exciting for us too. So it's kind of the next, slight evolution for us as well. But yeah, on a photo standpoint, yeah, it really is nice to have both of us there. And again, know that we are delivering both, kind of two angles for our clients. And sometimes, there'll be times when, like last night was a perfect example. When Colt was about to go over the finish line, he was about a half a lap away, and Ryan and I we were near the finish line. I said, "Hey, I'm going to shoot wide angle. You should go shoot long." And he said, "Yep, perfect." And ran over there. He got the long lens. I got the wide shot, and we both, in two totally different looks. But at the end of the day, they both get turned in together as our work together. So I think, the clients really benefit from it, and it also helps us.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This question's going to be a fun one for me to hear your answer. Obviously, the start. You got to get the start. You got to get the finish line. There's certain things on your checklist you got to hit, right?
Oh, yeah.
But somehow you guys, I don't know how you do this. I got a buddy, Mike Visor. He does photos.
Oh, yeah.
This dude, he catches every crazy crash, no matter what. I don't know how he does it. It's like
he does. Yeah, Visor's amazing at that stuff, man. I would say the two crash experts are Visor and Guyverson. Guyverson gets some crazy crashes too every time. I don't know how he does it.
I swear to you, when I race arena cross, every time I hit the ground, Visor comes walking up with a photo. I'm like, dude, is this me? Is this a me thing? Like, do you think I'm going down or something? But how do you catch every single crash? So my question to you is, you have the things on your checklist that you got to get because they're the meaningful moments. Yep. How do you approach the rest of the night? And then how is it just an instinctual thing? Because you guys catch these moments and there's no way it's not, you don't see it coming, but you get it. Like, how does that happen?
I think a lot of that, it boils down to us being, former racers and enthusiasts, and knowing what the coolest parts of the track are, and like sections that we know are the most challenging, that would present the most technicality to the rider. And I think that a lot of times is where the best photos come from. That's why you always see us photographers hanging out in the sand section all the time, because it's gnarly stuff happens there. You
guys know. You just know.
So it's like there's those sections that like, all right, cool, sand. There's gonna be stuff flying. People are probably gonna crash, all that stuff. So that's like an exciting place to look for. Same with like the whoop-de-doos, because you never know. Guys start getting buck weird and whatever. It's another place that we typically try to we like to shoot. And a lot of it also is, luckily the people from Feld are nice enough to give us a track map every week, and that we have green areas, and we can only go in those green areas that you probably know. So, and it's just for our own safety, but that does dictate a lot of it. And so I think like it's in our own way, it's a challenge to us, because we have to make the most out of those areas. So it's, every week's it's different. Again, that's one of the reasons I love doing it, is it's every weekend's a different challenge. And, but we always try to make the most of those green areas, using different lens sizes and everything else to try to really, show each one of those spots. And again, like you said, to really try to anticipate like where things are going to go down that night, and where the biggest action is going to happen.
I don't know how you guys do. I mean, you end up getting it, like all of it, all the crazy stuff. You somehow get it.
The crashes though, that's a tough one. I don't know. And for some reason, I'm like the least lucky with, or no, I shouldn't say lucky. No, anyone crash, but like I tense up. Like a lot of times when I crash, I just can't keep shooting. I'm just like, whoa, and I think other people are just instinctually just push that button. But when I see somebody crash like that, I don't know, for some reason, a lot of times I miss it, or I think I just freak out.
You feel guilty, like I don't want to capture this. I'm so sorry for this guy, but
and I typically never really do use them, because I never want to make it like, oh, check out this guy crashing. I feel bad for the guy. So it's like something that I typically wouldn't use other than to show my friends. But yeah, it's just funny. I just feel like of all my strengths as a photographer, getting crashes is probably not one of the best. I've gotten some good moments here and there, but not like Visor or Guy. Those guys are the masters.
Visor is a master, dude. I swear, he knows it's coming 5 seconds early. I want to pivot out of Supercross and get into F1 a little bit. I don't know a lot about F1, and I hear from everybody from a lot of angles how rad it is, how cool it is. There's so many cool aspects to it. What's it been like for you, just seeing the differences in the two sports and how it goes, and how does it work for you, just the different sports, the personalities, the way it goes? Just tell me some of those differences and kind of educate me on just F1 and how it's been doing stuff with those guys.
Yeah, it's a completely different level. professional and like just next level of supercrosses. I would say Formula One's even next like level of that. It's just crazy, like the money that's pumped into it and the teams and it's pretty wild, but it's very professional. It's very it's really impressive to see these teams operate and to see the the budgets they have to make this stuff happen, and just to see the cars themselves. I mean, that just like we did that a project a while ago where we took a Formula One car and basically it was a video project for Red Bull to tease the fact that Formula One's coming to the United States now. So what they did was they basically, the idea of the video, people may have seen it, is it was like it was driving the Formula One car across the country in all these iconic locations. Yep. So they took it and drove it across the Golden Gate Bridge. They went across the Vegas Strip. They did Monument Valley. I mean, all these crazy places. The up in Colorado, the mountains, the Continental Divide, like all these really cool places. And so that was amazing to get to shoot that and to see the car in those settings, and also just to see the car operate, to go on normal roads with this car. That's just, I mean, the noise of the thing and just everything about it, and like how, like, just in order to move it, it's such a big deal because you can't just turn a Formula One car around. So that was an interesting thing. Like the way he would turn it around on Monument Valley is the guy would just have to go and just hit the gas real hard and just do like basically a mini donut because the steering radius is horrible on it. So just all those little things is really interesting and really fun to watch and be a part of. But on a racing level, I mean, I don't do the whole tour or anything, but the few events that I've done, it's really, really impressive and it's really cool to watch.
Heard great things about it, and I'm just curious again because it's another sport that's very popular in a different way. And I know a lot of the moto people, I mean, they watch it, they love it, they're like obsessed with it. So just curious again, I've been to IndyCar, I've been to some other things like that. I've never been there. I was just curious of how that industry worked. Because
I think the other thing that's really interesting about it is the fact that kind of in what that Netflix series made it really popular. Yeah. It just like Supercross is, you get behind any rider and they have all their own struggles and all that stuff. So it's really interesting to watch, no matter if the person's winning or if they're in 8th place, because everything is so tight and they're so close that they're all killing it out there. And just like, I mean, it's amazing to watch, but they all have their own little struggles and everything. And it's really, it turns into just like Supercross, it turns into stories, and you get behind riders who you feel their plight maybe, or you can relate to them somehow or whatever. So I think it's a really fun sport. And I mean, I think any racing's awesome in my book.
When you look at the athletes like a James Stewart or Jet Lawrence, which I want to talk about now, from the outside looking in, you hear about the story, you hear about, like Jet, he's a fun kid, he's goofy, whatever. But you have the opportunity to work with these people behind the scenes where they're not performing to a crowd or to whatever. They're actually just themselves. I know Jet. What's it been like for you just seeing this little kid come up and be, I mean, he's turning into a sensation. I think you'll agree the way he rides the bike is one thing, but he's just so funny and likable and goofy and carefree. I haven't seen that in a while. What's it like, though, on the other side where you're behind, the scenes dealing with a family that's from Australia and a kid like this that's coming into his zone right now, Red Bull supporting him, Alpine's, he is blowing up, and you're getting to watch this thing. What's it like seeing that happen like right now in the moment?
Oh man, it's another thing where I'm pinching myself to be around this kind of thing. It's amazing. And I feel so lucky because, as you said, I mean, he couldn't be on any better of a trajectory right now. And I mean, he's just like, listening to the crowd last night was just amazing. I mean, it sounded like there was 80,000 people in that stadium when they brought him up to interview him. So yeah, he's awesome. I mean, working with him is so much fun, and he's just, his family, there's just such nice people. We just did that project in Florida with him where we shot at night and everything. And I mean, man, it's just just like really, I guess, I don't know if humbling is the word or whatever, but just to see his family and their dynamic and just what nice people they are, just everyone, his brother, his dad, everyone, they're just such great people. And to see Jet as a kid who's blowing up on a superstar level, but he's still a super humble, nice kid who's just down to earth. He likes to joke around, and he's, you can rib him and you can make fun of him and he'll do it right back. And he's just a fun kid, he's awesome. So yeah, I really am really happy about to see him and see somebody like him entering our sport. And I think like people like him will just make the sport get that much bigger and more mainstream and bring more money in for everybody and just the whole thing. I mean, he's definitely got the package going for sure.
So when you see him and his family and you're getting to know them again, and you're seeing this kid kind of blow up, and then you're here doing your job, you're focusing on doing your job. Is it hard sometimes because you also just want to take a look at what Jet's doing when he's laying, against the wall upset, or when he wins? And do you ever take a moment to kind of separate from your responsibilities and just look over and be like, wow, I was just hanging with that kid, a month ago, having fun with the lights and all the thing. And now here he is laying on the ground in this passionate, emotional moment. And you're just like, I know it's hard because you got to do your job, but can you disconnect every once in a while and just kind of reflect a little?
It's tough to do it in the moment. I think when I'm in my moment, I'm just like him, where I'm just like in the moment shooting. But then I think it's afterwards that I think of those things, afterwards I'll look back at the night, or, today I'll think back of yesterday, and I'll think some moments like that. And some of my favorite things or takeaways from the night. And that moments like that, that's when those things kind of start popping up. Like, oh man, I remember I was just hanging out with him, and, the Baker's Factory. So it's just stuff like that. It's just it's one of those things that it's cool. I feel really, really lucky to be involved with these people level. And again, I don't ever take it for granted, but at the same time, I try not to approach it as I don't know. I try not to get starstruck by it. It's more just a respect level, and just, I don't know. I mean, I'm such a fan myself that I love it, but I don't get caught up in I would say a fanboy kind of status. It's more just a level of respect of man, he's amazing on a bike, great person, class act, and lucky to be there documenting it.
Technical question for you: the shift to digital over the last however many years, how has that been for you? Has it made it better? Has it made it worse? Maybe a little bit of both? I mean, just kind of take me through that transition with photography.
It's a big one. Definitely a big shift. I would say it overall has made things way better. It's more work now for sure, because again, back in the day, so for the Ezra Lusk example of the cover back in the day, we'd go shoot 30 rolls of film that night, wait for a couple of days to get it processed, or a day or two, and then Monday or Tuesday we'd start going through the slides and seeing what ones are the best and picking the sharp ones and stuff. Now everything is, you see us down there, we're literally sending stuff as we shoot it. You're going to take a picture and send it, from our, download to our phone, send it to our client. So yeah, it's crazy. But at the same time, I mean, that's also, continuing to create the demand for the content we provide and everything else. That's just part of, rolling with the changes of technology and stuff. But there has been a huge difference, again, the biggest thing being back in the day, we'd finish a race and you're done for the night. Now we finish the race and you go straight to the computer and start sending files out and everything else. But again, at the end of the day, now we're completely done with distributing all photos by, the next afternoon after the race. Whereas back in the day, it would be, almost a week before we'd have everything processed, gone through. And then sometimes if somebody wanted an ad, you'd have to FedEx that slide or get it drum scanned or something. So, it's the give and take. There's pluses and minuses of it all. But I mean, the new digital cameras are so amazing, and they really do make our jobs easier, but at the same time, it's all relative. So it's the better the cameras are, the more you just continue to step it up. But there's always its own challenges too. So it's kind of relative, but it's also, I mean, overall, digital has been awesome, and I'm really stoked with the evolution of the cameras. And I just actually switched to mirrorless this year, and this Supercross is the first racing I've shot with it, and I'm really, really liking the change so far. So
that perfect leads me into my next question, because I love Science of Supercross that they do on the broadcast every week. The Kawasaki does, they show the technologies, 3D printing, whatever. I love that stuff. It's like, God, what's next, right? So for you in your industry, you just made that big change. Why did you make that change? What technologies are coming through that are changing even to this moment? Because the quality is insane, but we're human beings. We don't stop, right? So what's coming, and why did you make that change that you just did this season?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it, but the evolution of the cameras it's really crazy. So for one thing, but one quick example is in the past, we have autofocus points that go across our viewfinder, and there'd be about, like, here's your viewfinder, half, like maybe just in the middle, a half of the frame would be actual points you could use to focus. The new ones, the entire screen now, you can focus anywhere. So it like, that's one huge thing for like your composition, for instance, because now you can put the rider in the frame wherever you want him or her and have them sharp and completely compose the scene differently than before. You'd have to kind of have the person in the middle and then maybe try to crop in weird or something if you wanted to put some, put them in a different part of the frame or compose them differently. So that's one thing. The autofocus is way better. The auto exposure is better. It's just one of those things, like, kind of everything is better, and it shoots more frames per second. The files are bigger and have more depth to them. So it's just one of those things. It's like everything in life. It's like a new car, just when you think you got the best one, 5 years from now, there's going to be some one that drives itself or whatever. So, it's one of those things, but the new camera is really exciting. It's my biggest jump, I would say, since going from film to digital, and now digital to mirrorless. It's a really big jump, but it's really exciting and it's fun to. And another thing that's different now is, before I was actually looking through the glass. Now what I'm looking through my eye is actually a digital, like, there's millions of little pixels in that little viewfinder, and so I'm actually looking through digital view of what I'm seeing. So it's really weird, but it's very easy to get used to, and it's already amazing. So
last question for you as we kind of wind this thing down. You've obviously lived a rad life. You've done cool things. You're passionate about it. You're all over the place. We talked about the balance. From here on out, just moving forward, is there anything specific that you want to do that you haven't done yet? Is there anything that you've done that you don't really want to do anymore? As you're paving your path for, say, the next 5 years, what's that path look like? Like, what do you want to get into? What do you want to avoid?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like I take things on such a just day by day basis, but that's something to really think about in 5 years. But I feel like I'm lucky enough to have everything has really fallen into place for me well right now. So I guess at this point, I'm almost in just like the management portion of it, where I'm just trying to, I want to continue on shooting Supercross and motocross, and I want to continue doing basically just the same projects I've been doing. So I mean, I'm always striving for more, of course, but I feel like I've really hit a really good stride right now. So I think that at this point, it's more just continuing on and continuing to build the relationships with the clients and the people that I've worked with and things, and just, continuing to just do bigger and better projects. And I think that, like, there's not that, I guess I've done enough things now to where I'm like, there's not like one certain place or thing that I have to check off the list or anything. It's more just, I guess, just stacking cool projects and put, under my belt, and just being able to look back and, and a lot of times there's projects that come up that you might not even know they're so special until a few years later. And then you realize, like, what happened, I mean, like Robbie Madison riding the wave in Tahiti was a perfect example of that. I mean, even though I knew that was special, I mean, that was one of the coolest projects I've done my whole life. And so that was one of those things where it's like, at the time, it was just a phone call of, hey, you want to do this thing? And like, yeah, let's do it. And, it turned into, years later, I look back now and, it was just a crazy, crazy time, and that, something amazing to witness. So it's funny how a lot of that stuff just kind of, just pops up, and you just got to keep ebbing and flowing and keep busy. And the really big projects that are going to shine will shine. And some of them you end up, weird things happen and bad weather or whatever. But yeah, I think that overall, my biggest thing is just trying to keep maintaining and trying to keep building and doing cooler things, I guess.
So overall, found your sweet spot and you're in it right now.
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah. I mean, again, there's always room to build, but I wouldn't say there's like a thing where I'm like, I'm not going to be happy until I'm shooting Rolls Royces or something. I don't have any kind of like a certain, I feel very fortunate shooting for the clients that I do right now. And, again, being able to go to Supercross every weekend is awesome. And I know there's a million people who would trade me any day of the week. So yeah, I think, again, at this point, it's really just maintaining and building those things that I've worked so hard to get to this point.
Well, congratulations on all your success. And obviously you do a great job here. Everybody respects you a lot. So congratulations on all that. Thanks for joining me on Beyond the Track. It was a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you on this 2021 journey that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. It's the most we've ever spoken, and now every week I'm gonna be bugging you and saying hi. So it's cool. I mean, we've always been friendly, but it's cool to actually finally get to talk to you, and really for in depth. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here. It was really cool.
Heck yeah, man! Thanks again, and see you in a couple days.
Right on.